Last time what we did is that we went through the different ways of implementing CSS into your website. So we went through inline CSS, which we said is when we put our CSS commands within the existing HTML tags. We also went through internal CSS, where we take our CSS commands and we put them within the head section. And we also went through, finally, external CSS, where we create an external CSS file to the HTML file that we're working on, and we link the two by using this line. Okay, so this line has a link here, this href link, which specifies the location and name of the CSS file that we're using to style our HTML. Okay, so in this video, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run through different commands you can use to style your text. Okay, so from now on, what we'll be doing is that we'll be adding additional commands to this external CSS file. It's best practice generally to separate your HTML and your CSS into different files, right? And to just use this link to link the two. And what happens is that as we update our CSS file, that will cause different changes to our HTML. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to focus for now on our style.css file that we created in the last video. So here we can see that we're making changes to the paragraph because we specify P here. So it's going to make changes to all of the content that is contained within P tags, which is our paragraphs. And what we're saying here is that we're saying that we want to change the color to blue, and we want to change the text alignment, the alignment of the text, to a central position on our web page. Okay, and that's what we can see here. If I just drag this down a bit, we can see here that the text has been changed from the default black to blue, and the alignment has also been changed to a central position. So now I'm going to add a few more commands to change other attributes of the text. So for one thing, what you might want to do is that you might want to change the size of your text. So to do that, you can use what in this case would be the font size command. So font dash size. And something that you're going to notice that we're going to use a lot with CSS is pixels to determine sizes. So pixels are pretty much dots of color that form the images that we see when we look at screens or displays. So if I just look for a quick definition of what pixel is. Pixel, let me put pixel definition. Definition. Good. Okay, so a pixel is a minute area of illumination on a display screen, one of many from which an image is composed. Okay, so pretty much the image that you're looking at on your screen right now is made up of thousands of little dots of color that all together comprise the image on screen. Okay, so when we talk about size in CSS, we use pixels, and what we're saying is that we're saying that something is a certain amount of pixels tall or wide. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to set the size of my text to be a certain amount of pixels tall. So I'm going to make it 25 pixels tall, and pixels are represented by px when we're dealing in CSS. Okay, so I'm going to put the font size at 25 pixels, semicolon, to end that command off, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to save it. I'm just going to shut this window since I've already stated what the definition is. So I'm going to close that. Now let's come back here. So currently this has a particular size. Let's see if it changes. Refresh. And as you can see, this is now a good ways bigger. So what that command does is that allows us to set a specific size for our text. Okay, and you can also use it to double or triple the size of your text also. So if I take out this command again and I save it and I revert it back to its original size, so you can see it's back down to its original size. What I can do is I can instead use a percentage, so I can say font dash size, and then I could put it at, let's say, 200%, and that should double the size. Let's see what happens. Save, refresh, and that has doubled the size. See? So the font size command works in a couple different ways. It can work as a percentage. It can work as pixels. Okay. So good. So that's how we can change the size of our text. So we've changed the color, we've changed the alignment, and we've changed the size. Let's look at adding an underline. So to do an underline, you can put text dash decoration. Good. And then you can say underline. Save. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Good. So now we have an underline under our text. Good. Okay, let's try something else. So I'm going to bring back up Notepad and I'm going to add another command. So that's our text decoration. Let's try capitalizing our text. Okay. So text dash transform in this case. And let's try capitalizing it. So capitalize. Good. Okay. So I'm going to save and then I'm going to check it again. Good. So you can see that what's happened now is that it has capitalized all of the first letters of my short sentence here. Okay. Good. So we're covering a fair set of commands here, and there are several more. Okay. But probably one of the most important ones that people generally care about is changing the font type from one font to another type, such as what you might see in Microsoft Word or some other word editing, well, text editing program. So to do that in this, you use a command called font family. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how you can use a large set of fonts stored on Google, and you can how you can enter that into your website. So to do that, I'm going to come here and I'm going to look for Google Fonts. Good. So this is what I want. I want fonts.google.com. And they have hundreds of fonts here. You could pretty much, you're not ever going to run out of options to use in terms of fonts from this website. So that's why I'm showing you how you can get your fonts from here. So what you do is that you just you can just browse the list of fonts that I have. So let's say that I like this font and I want to use it on my website. I could click on it. And what they'll do is that they'll list a variety of different variations coming down the page. And all you need to do is you just have to click select this style on your right side here. Click it. And then what happens is that it gives you this box here with an embed link on your right side here. So you just click on embed, and then it gives you two different sets of code. Okay. So the first set of code here is the code that we have to add to our HTML file. So we have to add another link to our HTML file so that our website can pull information from Google on this particular font. Okay, so that's what this is. So I'm going to copy this first. Copy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to Notepad++. And remember that we have our two tabs here, one for HTML and one for CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the HTML tab here to bring back up this information here, my HTML file. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add this link below the link that I've put in for my CSS file. I'm just going to paste it here. It doesn't necessarily have to be below that. I'm just doing that just out of a personal preference. It doesn't really matter really the ordering. So anyway, I'm going to paste this in here. Good. And then we have a second link below this. Well, a second set of information below this. This isn't really a link. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll copy this, and what this is for is that this is for telling the CSS that I want to change this particular element. So I'm going to bring it back up. That's for telling the CSS that I want to change this particular element, which in this case is the paragraph, to this font. Okay, so I'm going to add that. I'm going to paste it here. So I've done two things. I've added the link to the Google website here in my HTML, and I've also specified that I want that particular font with this command, font family. I want that particular font to be applied to this element, which is the paragraph. Okay, so let's see how that works. So let's come back to the website and just look at it first. Okay, so these are the changes we had made before. So let's look and see if the font changes. So I didn't save it, so let me save it. And let me refresh this to see how it looks now. Good, so we can see that the font has changed. Okay. So Google Fonts is a pretty good resource for finding different fonts that you can add to your website. As I said, they have a large selection of different fonts. So that should satisfy any need you have in terms of wanting another font, wanting to change your thing to another font. Okay. One last thing I want you to note before I end this video is that if you look closely here at this link we've added to the HTML, so here you have the website. You have, again, this is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol declaration there. And then you have the website fonts.googleapis.com/CSS, right? That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with CSS. And then they have the family. So you have family. So remember that the font family is the actual font that we've been changing the font to. And then you have equals to Oswald. Oswald is the font that we've selected here. And then you have all this other additional information here. This other information here is actually not needed. Okay. This is, if you look closely here, this information is pertaining to these additional modifications that are being done here. So you can see here that it has light 300, it has regular 400 here, medium 500, etc. So these are additional modifications that are done to the core font. Okay, so you don't need these additional modifications. So if I bring back up Notepad, so what I can do is I can actually take these out. So I can come to the end here and I can backspace all these out if I just want the font itself without the additional modifications. Okay, so good. So I've taken those out. So now if I save, let me just check the CSS, make sure. Yeah, good. So that looks okay. Good. So let's look and see what that's done here. So this should revert it back to the original font without those additional modifications that I was speaking of. So if I refresh it, and there we can see that this is the original font without those additional modifications. Okay, so that's it for this video. In the next video I'll go into how we can actually modify our images next. Okay.